This morning I was thinking I would come over here to the cemetery and get a walk in before doing another video, because had some stuff last night that I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit. And then it started raining, so I was thinking that I'd just leave the dogs at home, and they were staring at me like there was literally no reason that they couldn't go. So here we are. And Gidget's getting used to me staring at my phone, and she starts watching my camera. I noticed a little bit ago, because there's so much holding it and fighting it I have to do before I just suck it up and hit the button. But yeah. Yesterday it was kind of a crazy day. I was having like all these really bad headaches, could not shake them at all. And I have all the rocks that I use to help for grounding. Sometimes I remember to do a grounding meditation to start my day. Probably not as much as I need to focus on. And I just couldn't shake it. I have a couple things like petrified wood and chiastolite or something like that, which I keep on my headboard to kind of help with grounding as well. But I don't know, nothing really seemed to help on that end. But my head was like buzzing all day. Just felt like something's happening. And I felt like it was definitely a grounding issue. Although probably would have been a good idea to stop at the time I thought that and just do one of the meditations then. But I didn't, because that'd be too easy. So when a couple nights ago I decided that I liked ending like the very last thing with writing in the notebook to my twin flame. And I've been prioritizing that as a means of writing. Because like with journaling, I kind of get distracted and lose interest because it's not really like I'm talking to anybody in particular, except for maybe future me that looks at it. But the night before last when I did that, it seemed like I had some 5D energy action all night, just where my there's communication happening. I can't quite put my finger on it yet. It's like I know there's something going on beyond me. Now whether that's with spirit guides, angels, higher self, whatever. It's just, I knew it just seemed like there was something going on because like my head would not stop ringing. And I did lay down for a while last night and have like 3 hours where I had this like shamanic drumming thing playing and was kind of dozing with that. And it was a little bit better, but still wasn't quite it. So when I actually went to bed last night, ended with the notebook like I've started doing, and then remembered that I'd watched this tarot reading at some point that talked about health issues and making sure to keep up with what's going on with your health. And when I had that that episode where I wasn't sure if I was having a heart attack, It did, I got into the doctor and got on meds for my blood pressure, and I had undiagnosed sleep apnea for a long time. So it's like, well, it's time to look into that too. And so I had my doctor refer me to a sleep specialist and got on a CPAP machine to help me not forget to breathe at night. It's so funny because my entire life, like in high school, especially during band, I would get people in my face like, breathe, you have to breathe, remember to breathe. It's like, why is something that's supposed to be so natural so easy to forget? And why do I struggle so much with it? And for a time, I thought it was mainly because I spent so much of my life trying not to make any waves with my existence and the fact that I was here at all. And so it was just like a tendency to do it. But I think there's more to it because it is such an ongoing thing. But last night, I went ahead and made sure to use the machine again. And it's like it... I went to sleep almost immediately, and I was in this other place. It's like there was, I was standing in front of this really tall wooden door, and there was this bright light that was coming out from behind it, and it wasn't open, but it may be cracked, but like the light was just radiating out from behind it. And it was very clear that I was receiving messages in that state. And the only thing more I did on the grounding end was use the stupid machine. And I kind of think that's a big part of why I struggle on the grounding so much, is because it's so easy for me to revert back to forgetting to breathe. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's an ongoing, lifelong issue. And my whole family has issues with sleep apnea and whatnot, but I now realize it's like part of my issues with grounding is that I don't breathe. Obviously, I breathe enough to function enough to not die, but yeah, otherwise, the whole thing's just like, yeah. I listened to Nordic Light Tarot the other night, and I think she was talking about Eckhart Tolle when he reached his enlightenment, and she told the story and where he'd end up like homeless or whatever. I don't know much about him at all. I do have one of his books, but I haven't read it yet. But she told this story about how he ended up homeless and all this other stuff. And when trying to figure out what had happened, he said, "Oh, I have forgotten to think." It's like, that feels like my life. It's getting more and more difficult to remember the physical aspects. And I think it's always been kind of difficult, but there were always layers of junk over the top of my energy, so I didn't know that I needed to be aware of what was mine versus what wasn't. I just thought it was all mine. And I said in yesterday's video, which I haven't posted yet, that, even the most well-meaning people can become energetic parasites if they latch on and you don't disconnect the energy. It can definitely siphon your own. And I am finding myself getting increasingly protective of my energy, especially the more and more I realize this other stuff's going on. Hey. It's kind of funny too. I was thinking there have been a few days recently where my dogs are starting to look at me a little differently too. I think Gidget does it the most. She's the one that just popped up here. She's also the one that was staring at my phone waiting on me to do something. But with what Annie said the other day about my the energy around me kind of expanding, I guess it would make sense that animals are more sensitive to that kind of stuff. So it kind of makes sense on that end that they would look at me a little differently. But yeah, like the deal with the CPAP machine and the sleep apnea. Back in the fall, I had like some kind of sinus infection or something. And so I stopped using it because I couldn't breathe, and I didn't like just pushing air straight out when I couldn't go anywhere. It's like, ugh. It makes me feel even worse, so I just don't use it when I'm sick. And I'm actually finding that I'm getting sick less often. But that's just a side point. I think since I'm keeping my vibration higher as much as I can. Like the flu bug was going around in my family back in January, and my grandparents were both hospitalized with it for a few days, and my grandma got out of the hospital before she should, but since my mom and her sister were also sick, I ended up being the one going over there and staying at night in case she needed any help with anything. And I was like, well, I'm not trying to get this bug. But even being in the same room that she was in for most of the time, like we weren't up in each other's face or anything, but I was still in her house using her stuff, touching her stuff that she'd been using, like cleaning up the kitchen and all that stuff, and I never got sick. And I thought that was a big win, because usually it's like that stuff gets passed around in my family so quick. Especially with my niece in elementary school. She brings a lot of stuff around. It's like, nope, not trying to get it. And when I started skating and started finding that I was having my vibration more elevated as my general state, it did seem like a lot of that went away. And since I mentioned the blood pressure a few times, I will go ahead and say that I did get off of the blood pressure meds, because when I started skating and then I lost like 25 pounds that were accidentally before I was even paying attention to anything. And then I started skating, and then I think I'm between 45 and 50 that I've lost in less than a year. It's put my blood pressure back in normal range, so I don't have to take those anymore. So I think I was probably kind of hoping that would be the case with the sleep apnea. But since breathing is such a difficult thing to remember to do. I had something I was excited for back in the fall, and I was all up in the energetic space and found, like, I got to a point where it felt intoxicating just because I was all excited about the stuff that was going on, and I was up busy in the energetic space and not focusing on the physical. And I got like kind of lightheaded and it just felt really drunk on top of that. And I was like, oh yeah, I might need to breathe. So I just like started focusing on my breathing, and that helped bring me back down. But yeah, that's one of those crazy things too. Then as I've been trying to play with the balance of what crystals that I wear, I had one that I didn't realize was okay. I knew it had the potential to have more emphasis on my upper chakras than I needed, because my focus is needing to ground and root myself in. So I had this, I think it's called Organite. It has crystals for all the chakras, and then it uses copper to amplify it. Since it only had lapis lazuli and amethyst in the smallest amounts on the thing, I didn't really think of it because I had like all these other things for grounding that I was using. And I mentioned something in class with Lanita, and she was like, oh, that one that one was my problem. So it's like, she said it amplifies all of the crystals, so it was knocking me back out of balance. So I got rid of that one and shuffled around what I was doing, and it helped. But that was the thing. Before I knew that one was an issue, I mean, it wasn't like a constant always having headaches thing, but it was pretty scattered quite a bit. And back on Valentine's Day, Annie had this amplifier thing that she had in the class, and she had it has like 4 wooden legs and copper that runs all the way up to the top, and then there's a little copper crystal holder. Here's my friend. And she had a piece of amethyst in it. And she does not like being in the back seat, and cannot believe that I stuck her back there. Hold on, before you hurt yourself. Anyway, she has this thing for amplifying she wouldn't stop pulling, so I had to put this on pause. So she had this amplifier with the amethyst in the top, and I had no awareness that was going on with the Organite that I had, and I felt crazy scattered, and like you're fine. Like the longer that thing was up in the classroom, it's like it was just like I know where I was practically. It's like I don't know what's happening, but I kind of want to lay on the floor. I took like anything that wasn't for grounding off. So I had like a pile of my necklaces and bracelets and stuff on the floor next to me because I didn't know what was happening. But I felt very spaced out. And I didn't think about this until I was telling somebody about the experience later. But one of the guys in the class, who's a Capricorn, we had started talking in the class when the amplifier was still up, and I finally got to a point, it's like, can we take that down? I can't I can't exist in the space with that in here. And he came over after class was over and asked if he could give me a grounding hug, because he's a Capricorn, so he got that earth energy. And it felt like my energy was disconnected, like I was all scattered up here and coming apart in all the ways possible. And then it felt like I got pulled back into my body when he gave me a hug. It's like, oh, that's a completely different sensation. So now I'm finding that, well, I avoid things for as much as possible for the upper chakras, with the exception of selenite. I do have a selenite necklace on that I felt really drawn to, but it's supposed to help, I think, purify your aura or whatever. That's why I got it. And it has the flower of life on it, which I had heard somebody mention briefly, and then in January, I went to Zibby. I went to that metaphysical shop, and I saw this. It was just a little, little round thing for necklace. I don't know if I can figure out which one it is. This one. But I got really into, or I was really drawn to it, and I had heard someone talk about it recently. So for whatever reason, I just I had it. The first time I left it there. The second time I ended up buying it, and since then, God, I've seen it pop up so many more places. We were doing this meditation last week, toward the end of class, trying to connect with our Zibby, with our animal guides. And before we did the meditation, she showed this flower of life piece that one of the guys in the class does woodwork and had made. It was really cool. And like, I kept wanting to say something about how I felt drawn to this necklace after I heard about the flower of life somewhere else. But I kept not saying it. She would hold up like a couple different books in different weeks that had it on there. It kept popping up, and then she showed this piece that the guy in the class had made, and it was really cool. But then we went to the meditation, and the octopus came to mind. And it's funny because my brother and I will send each other little images or GIFs or whatever with, and even like I found this little octopus. He got one's like a little metal decoration, and then another one is a silly sign for the bathroom. It's something, excuse me, my lord, your butt napkins or something. But I had completely forgotten that he and I had this thing with the octopus until we go into this meditation, and then it comes to mind, and then I'm thinking of all these little things that I've gotten for him or myself that have been octopus related. I have these little, I think they're called furry bones things that I started collecting on trips to New Orleans. And it's like a little, the face looks like a skull. It's white and it's got the big black holes for eyes. But then they're all wearing little costumes, and I have one that's an octopus. It's like, why did I forget all about that one? But as I was seeing it in my mind, there was also like this a flower of life that was kind of like vibrating all around it. And when I looked up the meaning of the total meaning of the octopus, it talked about the interconnectedness of things. And I showed Annie and told her all about all these ways it kept coming up, and she said it also means you're involved with a lot of different things. And yeah, she's just talking a little bit more about that. I was like, why did I forget all about that? And I think it's kind of funny because like I've been realizing more and more how connected things are. And then, now that I got this little thing, and we're supposed to talk about sacred geometry in the next couple of weeks, I think. So yeah, obviously there's something there, but just, I think realizing how connected everything is kind of mind-blowing. And as long as I remember to breathe, maybe I'll be able to hold it together a little bit better. But yeah, I found out I needed the stupid CPAP machine. I don't love that I need this stupid thing, but when I started using it, because the first season of roller derby, I kind of felt like shit a lot because if you don't breathe when you're exercising, that's kind of a problem. And so I started, or after that incident in August, after the first season, it's like, well, maybe that would help. And it did. It helped immensely. And then I got to a point where I would lay down and just use my CPAP for like an hour before practices. It's like, wow, I feel like a whole different person out there. So that's probably largely why I improved it all. I mean, and I was skating more, but yeah. But I keep finding that it's like, I want to not need it. I would like to be able to just have all the physical stuff no physical issues, physical ailments, whatever. So when the high blood pressure came down, it's like, maybe no, still don't breathe. But I thought it was interesting how just sleeping with that last night made all this other stuff, like the communications, like it felt like I was being taught, and I should have written down what I had thought or had heard when I first woke up, but I didn't. I was hoping to get back to it when I went back to sleep. It did not work out that way. I mean, like, I think I was aware that there was still stuff going on. And it's really funny because in Lanita's class, she made a comment about helps with astral projection or something. It's like, I don't think I do that. And she's like, oh, you do. And I was just like, wait, what? How do you know? I didn't ask. I should have. But now I'm just starting to realize that I think I'm spending a lot of time doing that. I just didn't realize that's what I was doing. I thought I was daydreaming. So on that end, I've always been a daydreamer. and spent a lot of time doing that in my earlier years, so it's probably a good thing I didn't realize some of this stuff is what it is, because I might have opened myself to a lot more headaches back then that I wouldn't have understood, and God only knows how I would have come to find out that it was a grounding issue. But yeah. So grounding is a focus, and breathing is important for grounding. Anyway, I'm gonna leave this as a shorter one today. It's raining and the dogs are restless, and I think it's about time for us to just go back home and be peaceful and maybe do some cleaning. So until the next time, bye guys.